Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. We had a little bit of technology issues, so if you have been waiting where the post was that I posted back on Monday to go live in what Facebook calls the waiting room, I hope that somehow you found us here on the main page. So we'll work out the kinks. That's just how it is with technology, and Mercury retrograde just is either ending today or tomorrow. I can't remember, but we're really close. And if you're not sure what Mercury retrograde is, I highly encourage you to check it out, because I used to think that that was just something that didn't really mean anything. But my husband's in technology, and I'm very familiar with technology, and I found out that yes, indeed, Mercury retrograde has something in it where technology just might not work sometimes. So I'm just gonna double check here and make sure we're live and we're good, and hope everyone's doing well. Let me know if you are here. And I hope everybody had a really good Thanksgiving. I know that we did. It was kind of quiet this year, which was kind of nice. We just got to reflect and relax. But I am definitely in the Christmas spirit. I don't know if you are, but I think that I have a spirit guide that's really happy about spirit and the Christmas spirit. The other day I was humming a song, and I shared this in my group mentoring program with my students, but I wanted to share it with you. I was humming a song and it was Holly Jolly Christmas. So I decided to turn on the station. And it turns out that, in fact, that was the song on the station, and I was singing it right in tune for what was playing. So I thought that was really interesting, and also just an indication of picking up on that spirit vibe. But hope everyone's doing well. And if you checked out my latest video and blog post about adapting to high vibe foods, then you know that sometimes with Thanksgiving or Christmas, we can become really, really bogged down because we're eating so much heavy stuff, and we have to shift and change our energy. And one of the things that I really encourage you to do is work with your intuition, and I'm going to talk about your intuition and how that can work with your energy that you're actually putting in your body, resonating as food. So hi Susan, I'm glad you're here. Glad everyone's here and doing well. So if you haven't checked it out, I'll give you the link to it later. But basically what I was saying is, when we go through the holiday season, generally we're making recipes that have been passed down for years, or we're making stuff with a lot of butter in it, and it tastes really good, but sometimes our energy gets low. And so I was saying that there's 3 different things you can do. One is you could substitute some of the heavier things for lighter ingredients. So an example would be if for some reason that you decided, you know, it's way too much cheese, maybe you omit the cheese, or you could find like a coconut cheese, or instead of an egg, you could use ground up flaxseed. That's an example. Another thing is organic and non-GMO foods, and I was also talking about life force foods. But what I really wanted to get into today was how to identify with your intuition what foods might be best for you. And then I want to take it a step further and just talk about intuition and how you can connect with it, because sometimes we just take it for granted. Sometimes we feel like intuition is really far away from us, or we say it just turns on and off, but it's not consistent. So I just wanted to give some techniques and help you kind of identify what your body is saying and sharing with you with your intuition. So I love Susan, what she said. She said almond milk instead of regular milk. Absolutely. In fact, Susan, I did not plan this, but I used to love eggnog around the holidays. I found almond milk nog, and I think I shared that with my latest video and blog post, but it's lighter. And I actually had a friend over last night that tried it. She wasn't sure because she thought that eggnog was too heavy for her. She tried it and loved it. So that's a really great example. But one of the things I like to do before we get started is just do a little message from Spirit. So I'm going to be using some cards today. It's one of my favorite decks. It's The Sacred Traveler by Denise Lynn, and it's purple, so I always love purple. So we're just going to ask Spirit for a little message today, just for everyone that's going to be watching this in the future and everyone that's here right now. So let's see what Spirit wants to share. Clear the past and heal the present. I don't know if this is backwards for you or not. I think the light's shining on it, but it's basically got a lot of water energy with it. Whenever we have water, it usually represents emotions. And so I wanted to talk about this with the food. And we were sometimes just ingrained with emotional traditions, right? We make something and we think about a grandmother. We make something and we think about the family memories. And so even though we have these beautiful memories, it's about taking some of the past and carrying it forward in the future. But it's nice to kind of clear old behavior patterns, clear old emotional patterns. So just because we made things with a bunch of heavy food doesn't mean we have to move it into the future. So it's about clearing the past and healing the present for you. So hi, Anne-Marie, nice to see you. So a nice little spirit message I just wanted to share with all of you. So there is a direct correlation between the energy of the food that you put in the body and how your personal vibration shifts. So we all have energy around us. Now we know and we learn in science class that we have energy that activates our body, right? We also have energy outside of our physical body. So if you are familiar with me and my teachings, then you'll most likely know this, but you might not be familiar. So I just wanted to share. Hi, Lisa. So you've got your physical body, and then you have this little layer outside of the physical body that's the etheric layer. That's where we receive a lot of sensitivity. Then we have our emotional layer, then we have our mental layer and our spiritual layer. It's all around us. And so whatever we are putting into the body, we have to pay attention to, because that energy could be really heavy or it could be super light and actually affects all the different layers of the body. So if we're putting something in that's really great for us, then it starts vibrating out in all the different directions. So if you're eating lighter foods, you're eating lighter meals, you start going, oh, okay, I've got more energy. I'm feeling good. And then what happens is our body's able to digest it properly. We end up having more confidence, which is in that emotional field. And you start seeing our shoulders kind of prop up. And then we feel good about ourselves. That's probably the biggest thing, is we feel good about ourselves. And that's in the mental layer. And then it just helps align all the different bodies. Now, if we're putting something heavy in our body, it's really hard. We feel so sluggish and tired. We're like, I don't want to get up and go to work. Or I don't want to go do this. Like some of the smallest things. I don't want to get up and take a shower. It's like if we're putting something heavy, we just want to stay in our pajamas with our fuzzy socks and probably binge watch Netflix. Now, I know we probably all like to do that sometimes, but we have to be careful of what we're choosing for ourselves. So I wanted to talk about intuition and how this can help with choosing what's good for us, because I don't really think that we could look at all the different diet plans and say that's us. When we're really following our intuition, we kind of know what our body's needing. And of course, you always want to talk to a doctor or something if you feel like you're not getting enough nutrients, but this is something that can be really, really helpful. So let's take a moment here and think about whenever we are eating something, afterwards or before, were we craving it? Well, if we were craving it, what I want you to take from this is ask yourself, okay, I was craving it. What was triggering it? What was I thinking about directly before it? Was I stressed? Was I thinking about being healthier? Did somebody call me and I just got off the phone with someone? Now, these things can be really great intuitive indications about you having energy in your body. And if you're talking to somebody on the phone, perhaps you got their energy in your space. And so you are just reacting based on somebody else's energy. Now, also, if you feel like you are just really craving something, then usually there's a key nutrient or something that your energy or your spirit needs. Now, whenever we become lighter, all the different energy levels and bodies, when we become lighter, we become a great conduit for our intuition. We start channeling things a lot easier. So when we are in balance and we are lighter, we connect to our higher self, we connect to our spirit guides, we connect to our loved ones in spirit. So everybody experiences their intuition really differently, but I just wanted to say, whatever you're choosing to eat is going to be helpful in your intuition. So you use it to help you with what is good for you, but you also improve your intuition by continuing to be good to yourself and taking that self-care. Because the lighter we are, the more able we are to actually channel the messages. So for instance, we all have this innate ability within us. It's just some of us are running from it. Some of us don't know how to turn it on. Some of us don't know how to dial in. And it's because when we're reading books or we're maybe taking classes, it's sometimes we have this kind of expectation that everybody should experience intuition in a different way. Now, when I teach classes, I'll say, give me your definition of intuition. And I would say 9 times out of 10, a lot of people say feeling stuff or knowing stuff. When in fact, that's just a way you're receiving your intuition. There's also hearing things and seeing things. So I'm going to give you an example since we've been talking about food, and then I'll give you some different examples. But let's just say that all of a sudden you had a thought that popped into your mind about when you were 7 years old and you were with your family and you're at the holidays. And then all of a sudden you had this craving for that food. That's going to be more of your body responding to a thought that pops in. So when you are claircognizant, you just have a thought that pops into your head and your body responds. Sometimes the thought didn't even trigger in your memory and your body is just totally responding to an action. So another example is if you're driving in the car, you like how I'm doing my driving, and then all of a sudden you just start moving to the right. That is a claircognizant event where your body is being an energetic, intuitive pendulum, and you start moving to the right. And so as you move to the right and you're driving down this new highway, maybe there's 2 ways to get home, you're like, why am I going this way? It's a longer way and I always go the other way. Well, most likely it's because you used your intuition and you're going down this road for a specific reason. So it just happens. Things just come out of your body. It just happens. The same can happen when you're not using your intuition because your body is so used to responding in an action. If you are using that eating as, I need this, your body's just going to be going for it. So you've got to check in and make sure your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body, and your spiritual body are all into alignment. But when you're using your intuition, you're going to just respond out of what you really need. That's really, really helpful for you. So I think that's really nice. But one of those indications for claircognizant is thought pops into your head or you're taking action on something. One of the examples I share is my mom. So my mom is very claircognizant, although I don't know if she knows that or not. I've told her. And years ago, we were adopting some dogs, and we had to go through this very extensive, lengthy application process, and they had to do home visits and all this stuff. And they were really highly sought after dogs. And then after the first experience where they met the dogs, my mom just went to the pet store and started buying toys. And that's an example of claircognizance. I said, what are you doing? We have all these things that we need to do and go through the process. And she's like, oh, they're my dogs. I just know it. And it turns out she was right. So that's an example of claircognizance. So when you're working with intuition, if you're going to work with your intuition with food, pay attention to what your body's responding to and what the actions are. And then you might want to ask yourself why you're doing it as well. So making sure that you're getting your intuition in alignment with what you're doing for yourself. Now, another way that we get our intuitive messages is through feelings. So I said that was one of the most common things that I hear. And when we are getting our messages, what's happening is we start to feel things in our body and we can feel emotions. So I'm going to ask you these questions. So I'm kind of toggling back and forth between food and then intuition, and you can combine both of them. But I want you to think about, how does a certain food make you feel, for an example? Or what were you feeling right before you ate that food? Those things are really going to be key indications of why you're doing it. Now, if you're really working with your intuition, I want you to feel how that food made you feel? Do you feel lighter? And so if you're really choosing something based off of your intuition, usually you really need it. So for an example, I was feeling I needed bananas, and so it was a mixture of claircognizance and the feeling like I need it. And it turns out I did need it. It had some nutrients in it that I hadn't really had in my diet, and it was really, really helpful for me. So those are some examples. Now, when you're using intuition in your daily life, or you're trying to get messages from your loved ones and spirit, you can also feel their presence or feel their emotions that come through. And a lot of times with those who are empathic, we get these impressions in our body. We feel a sensation like a pressure in our chest or in our stomach or in our shoulder. We're actually getting sensations. We're feeling those sensations. And when that happens, what I would definitely encourage you to do is take a few moments and just center yourself. And I want you to ask, and just ask. You can ask yourself, you can ask your higher self, you can ask your spirit guides or spirit helpers, and just ask, what does this feeling mean? Or where is this feeling coming from? What does it mean? And then see what comes next. Because we get stuck sometimes in the body and we're like, I don't know what to do with it. I'm just feeling like my shoulder's stiff. Think about, what were you thinking right before your shoulder was stiff? Or what were you thinking at the time where you're getting these sensations? Did you think about wanting to communicate with your guides? Or were you thinking about work and you all of a sudden got this energy blockage here? So your feelings actually have meaning and emotions when it comes to intuition. And so really pay attention to that is what I would say. Now, another way, I should say, that we get our intuitive messages is through hearing. So we get it through sound, and we get it through what sounds like our inner reading voice. So if we are being very quiet and we are just kind of being with ourselves, a lot of times that's when we get our intuitive messages. And if you just get a inner reading voice where you get a word. So I'll give you an example. One night I was having trouble sleeping, and this was several years ago, and I really was looking for a solution. I wasn't sure what was going on. And I woke up and I heard valerian. I was like, what is that? And so that was an example of a spirit message in my intuition of saying, look at valerian root. And it turned out that it was really helpful for me to sleep. So pay attention to what you are hearing as well. Now, if you're really sensitive with clairaudience and you want to tie it back into the food, what you can do is simply think about, what were you hearing right before you choose to eat this XYZ? Or what was it that you felt around you? Was it a song? Was it something like a message in the song? Sometimes we get songs stuck in our head. Now, when I first started this Facebook Live, I was telling you that I was in this Christmas spirit and I was humming this song. And so I'm hearing the song in my mind. And when I turned on that station, there was the song and the right rhythm of how I was singing it. So when we are really clairaudient, we can hear our messages. And oftentimes we become confused because we think to ourselves, now, is this my voice making this up, or is this really a message? Now, if you are being very quiet and you are being centered, then normally what's happening is you are receiving that intuitive message through the inner reading voice. So it comes in really quick, and it can come in really fast. If you were to try to talk to yourself with the inner reading voice, it's going to be a lot slower than how an intuitive message would show up. Intuitive messages are really fast, and they usually come out of nowhere. Oftentimes with our intuitive messages, we get messages that we don't like, but we know we need to do it. Now, that's not all the time, but I kind of started this based on food, and I'm moving into intuition, but let's just talk about food as an example. If you just knew that you needed to eat mushrooms, but you didn't like mushrooms, that would be more of an intuitive message that there's something there for you to look more strongly at. Perhaps it's an adaptogenic mushroom or something that can help you. So oftentimes we're like, oh, I know I need to do this, but I don't want to. That's more of an intuitive message of, I really feel, I really know, or I got this word, like valerian, for an example, like the story I was just sharing with you, where I just knew I needed to research and see it through. Now, another way that we receive our messages is through sight, so clairvoyance. And this one often scares people, and so they shy away from it. And others that already have it usually want to know more about it. So seeing can simply be images. So I told you I would tell you how to find intuitive food. So if you're clear and you are centered, sometimes just a vision of the food that you need pops into your mind. Now, if you're using intuition in your daily life, then the same applies. A name could just pop into your mind and you see it. So you're actually seeing the name, or you see a color, or you're seeing an image of a person, or you're seeing a man in its full regalia, like you can see the clothing and everything. And so this would be clairvoyance. And so we use this in our daily life. And when we're really centered and grounded, we can really connect with the way that we receive messages. Now, there's also a couple other ways, and one is through smelling. So if you are trying to find what food works for you, you can smell sometimes, like spirit will give you a smell of what you need to be eating, or taste is another way. And you can do this in your daily life too. Oftentimes we have a loved one that comes through, they will have a certain smell, and you smell your grandmother's house, or I smell that perfume that my mom used to wear, something like that. With tasting, it can happen as well, where you're tasting a specific food that your family member used to make, or something of that sort. So there's so many different ways to actually use all of your senses, and I think that they're just subtle sometimes. And so we say, I'm not intuitive, I don't know, or that stuff is not for me. Well, it's actually for everybody. Everybody has it, and it's an innate ability that we are all geared to tune into. Some of us are already really, really open, and some of us are just not aware or resistant because they're afraid to see or hear, but that doesn't mean that they will. So if your spirit helpers say, you know, this person really doesn't want to see spirit or see us, then we're just going to give them those feelings and those knowings. But what's important is that you understand how you uniquely experience things. So I like to try to break it down for you where I say, this is probably how you experience it. This is probably how you experience it. And I do that for my students and my group mentoring group. But they can all blend together. So even though you might be primarily feel things and be an empath, and that's how you get your intuitive messages, it doesn't mean that you can't see, hear, or know. And so when all these different ways that you experience in your intuition and spirit come together, it's this beautiful, unique language that you have. So if you're wanting to know a little bit more about maybe what your type is or what your primary type is, I do have a free quiz if you haven't taken it. And it doesn't mean that that's the only way you can get it. It's just most likely how you have responded to the questions. And so I'll share that a little bit later on, because I don't want you to hop off here. I want you to stay with me because I got a couple other things. I also wanted to say too that if you're really being blocked off, and let's just say you were heavy and your energy's heavy, right? And you feel like you can't get any intuitive message, I like for you to pay attention to the synchronicities that go on around you. So oftentimes spirit will come through, and they'll come through other people, or they come through in patterns, like usually threes. So an example would be if somebody said a loved one in spirit's name, and you heard Jenna at the grocery store, and you were thinking about your loved one that had passed named Jenna, and then you turn on the TV and you hear Jenna and things like that. That's usually an indication that spirit is actually there. And usually that comes in when you're either not paying attention, or you are just unable to really get those messages because you are really heavy or you're sad. So another way that we can be heavy, other than what we're choosing to put in our body, being heavy energetically can simply be we are becoming sad, or we are angry or frustrated. So all that energy can kind of create a barrier, and it can be really hard to get our messages. Now, some of you might be saying to me, well, Whitney, where do I get the messages? Like, who's giving them to me? So one of the ways that you can receive and from is from your own spirit. You can receive your messages from your own spirit. So you can say your higher self if that makes you comfortable, and you can actually do it. Now, another definition of intuition is you receiving messages from spirit, basically for your own benefit. So mediumship would be me giving a message to you from spirit, but intuition is receiving messages that you need to know. And so it can be from the angelic realm, it can be from your spirit guides, and it can be from loved ones who are in spirit. But it's an innate ability. It's basically we are a telephone, and we have that receiver open so that we are getting that information, and then we're understanding what's coming in. So that's where we're getting the information. It's just really helpful for you to get to know how you get the information, and it's all unique to every single person. So, like I said, with synchronicities, we want to pay attention to what's going on. Now, one of the stories I've shared lately with my group mentoring program was my family, my parents' dog passed into spirit, and his name was Quincy. And so I was watching some TV show. It was in the background, and I don't even know what it was, but sometimes we leave the TV on for our dog. So I heard this, and one of the actors said, "My name's Quincy." I was like, that got my attention. Okay, that really got my attention because that sounded like a common name. And the other actor in the skit said, "Oh, I love your name. It's so unique." And the man named Quincy said, "I was named after my father's dog." And I said, "Oh, that's so nice." So that was a synchronicity where I knew that dog was okay. So that's an example, and those tangible signs that we get. Sometimes when we look out the window, we might see a specific bird or a butterfly, or perhaps we are outside and one lands right on our body and just hovers there, or we have that experience or that moment. And oftentimes, pay attention to what you were thinking right before, or pay attention to what comes up for you when that spirit messenger comes in. Maybe you feel that it's your loved one there saying, "Hey, I'm here." Maybe you know it's a loved one that's there. Or perhaps when you close your eyes and you clear your mind, you get an image of their face that flashes. Or perhaps when you close your eyes and you really center yourself, you hear their name that pops in, or maybe you hear, "I love you." So those are different ways to experience messages. If you really feel like you are heavy, then this is a way that spirit comes through for you to get your attention if we are not really paying attention. But I really do invite you to pay attention to what's going on with you. Pay attention to those subtle energies and how you're feeling. It can be so helpful when we start to give more importance to things that are intangible. In society, we are taught to pay attention to the things in front of us, or the things around us that are tangible. And we all have this great innate ability when we're young to experience our intuition, but it's just something that we're not really taught, and so therefore it gets on the back burner and we forget about it. We forget about energy. When we're young, we're usually able to identify if we like somebody or not based on their energy. And then we lose it as we get older because we're not paying attention to it. So see how you feel, see how you just know things, or how your body responds to something. Maybe you meet somebody and you immediately feel like, "I gotta go." That would be a clear cognizant, "I gotta go." Or if you're meeting somebody and you feel like, I don't really want to talk to this person. Same goes true if it's somebody you really feel excited to be around. So really pay attention to your feelings and your knowings. And then also, if you are ready to take it to that next level, or you're not afraid of it, close your eyes when you want to get some insight and pay attention to what you're seeing. You can ask a question, close your eyes, and see what the answer comes to you. Or also if you're hearing things as well. So this can be really, really helpful. So I invite you to learn more about your intuitive language, your unique way of communicating with spirit. And so if you want to know more about your primary, most likely your primary intuitive language, you can go to messengerofspirit.com/quiz, and I will post the link as well. But messengerofspirit/quiz, you can take the free quiz and find out a little bit more about your unique language type. All right, well, I hope to do more of these. It's been great to connect. I mean, it's been probably like, what, a year since I've been on one of these Facebook Lives for our page, and I'm glad we got to. And before we close, I just want to do another little closing message for everybody. So I'm just going to pull a card and see what's coming through from Spirit. So let's see what we have here. Nice. So this is talking about savor your life. I love that. Sometimes we just get caught up in the rat race and we just forget about paying attention to the things that really make us feel good. And I love this card because we've got to pay attention to what's coming through, what helps us feel good, what makes our energy feel lighter, what's contributing to our joy, what is something that we feel is healthy for us. And so we started this conversation out with food. And it's tying it back into that. Pay attention to what you're putting in your body. Pay attention to how it feels. Pay attention to other things that you're doing. Maybe you have a strict schedule and you feel like, I don't have any intuition because I'm just going. Make sure that you make time for what is unique to you and what helps you feel lighter and lifted. All right, so messengerspirit.com/quiz, and I hope that gives you some helpful information with your results, and look forward to seeing you at another time. All right, bye.